Hey guys, I'm Justin with AmericanMuscle.com, and today we're taking a quick look at and walking you through the install of the Bilstein B6 Performance Rear Quad Shock, available for all 86 to 04 solid rear axle Mustangs. Plain and simple here guys, you should be checking out the Bilstein for your SN95 or New Edge if you're looking to improve rear end grip and handling while also reducing wheel hop that would otherwise be caused by a worn out or blown out set of factory dampers. So the big feature here will be for the Mustang owners who are still riding with that factory quad shock setup on your SN or New Edge and have just been noticing a sloppy rear end feel lately, whether through poor traction, wheel hop, or just generally loose overall. Now the Bilsteins that we're talking about here today are specifically the B6 version of the axle damper, which is the horizontally mounted shock connecting the rear of the car to the axle itself. And basically the purpose or responsibility of this shock here or damper is for controlling or preventing excess axle wrap under acceleration. And for those who don't know what that is, axle wrap is the unwanted twisting or rotating of the rear axle under hard acceleration that can cause the rear end to hop or bounce when getting really on the car. Now, by replacing the worn out factory axle dampers, you'll be on your way to a much improved rear end feel with dramatically less wheel hop. Now the B6 that we have here today from Bilstein is going to be a massive upgrade over the stock damper in just about every single way. For starters, heavy duty 36mm damper that will feature a monotube design, so basically a single internal piston here, and that's going to help produce less cavitation and just a basically more consistent performance overall. Now, not only will the B6 improve different performance aspects of your SN or New Edge, but it'll also just help the car feel much better in normal driving situations, especially if you have been dealing with a blown out or worn out shock on your ride. Now, the best plan of action here, guys, obviously is to replace all 4 of the shocks in the rear end to ensure the best possible performance. I know that's going to be a lot more money, and honestly, if you wanted to totally refresh everything, Bilstein does offer a B6 for both front and rear here of your SN and New Edge. So again, that's a little bit more of an investment. I don't deny that one bit. So if you just wanted to strictly stick to upgrading the horizontal quad shock, just make sure you're grabbing a pair, as this particular shock is sold individually. Now this is a great time to segue into price point, and the Bilstein will run you just right around 150 bucks per side. Honestly gonna be, I would say, the middle of the road option between a more basic factory OE replacement on the more budget friendly side of things. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have an option like the Koni, for instance, which will be a bit more expensive at the end of the day. So Bilstein, obviously a quality name, something you can trust, is gonna be an upgrade. Still cost you, I would say, middle of the road when compared to some of your other options. All right, moving into the installation, and the site is gonna call this one a soft 3 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. And my logic there is they're just assuming most owners are gonna knock this out with other suspension at the same time, but figure at least 30 minutes per shock here and you should be good to go. But now to give you a better idea of what to expect in the garage or driveway, here is a detailed walkthrough provided by an AM customer.
Tools for install: pry bar, ball peen hammered, 15mm wrench or socket would do. Then we have a 1/4 inch ratchet with an 18mm socket. So today we're going to be installing a new pair of B6 Bilstein quad shocks. As you can see, these are pretty shot, so we're going to be replacing those and getting some new ones on there. I did spray some penetrating oil beforehand. It's a 2001 Mustang, so this could take a little bit of muscle, but my hope is that with that spraying on there, I've let it sit for about an hour, hoping that these bolts will come off pretty easily. So to start, got a 1/4 inch ratchet with a 15mm socket. All right, and that will be for, I'm sorry, this is an 18mm socket, and that will be for the back one first. So we'll go ahead and try to break these loose, hoping not too bad. Oh, that wasn't too bad at all. Until we can just spin it off by hand. A nut and a washer. put that off to the side because we will be reusing that. All right, for this front one, all right, we got to go a little bit bigger. All right, I got a 7/8 socket on here. Again, hoping that we can break it loose in a timely manner. We're gonna try to go to the side so that I can get a little bit of leverage downwards. Might have to use a little bit of a hammer to get a little kind of broken loose here. Yeah, I'm not working with power tools, so gotta work with what I got. Again, ball peen hammer would be a great way to go. So these definitely can get stuck on here. I'll try to figure out how I can get a little more leverage. I don't have, with this tight space, it's definitely hard. All right, so you live and you learn. So again, this front one came off pretty easily. Again, we used a 18mm socket on that with the ratchet. This back one, so this bolt is welded onto the car. So you were gonna use a 15mm wrench or socket. I'm gonna use a wrench just because there's not a lot of space back there. And then obviously lefty-loosey, so we'll kind of proceed with taking this one out of there. And it still didn't move the best, but we are making progress now. So, and I can see that bolt spinning when coming down. Again, it is tight, so just make sure you're going in the right direction. Again, and these bolts are pretty rusted, so I'm hoping that it all works out, nothing breaks. We'll be in a whole different scenario. And that front kind of sticks out of that nut, so it is gonna be hard to kind of re-thread that through. But once we get past that, it should be, oh, see, it's getting easy now. Put my glove back on, so I'll bust my knuckles. And you might be able to get a socket in here. Again, sometimes it's easier just to work with one wrench, but hopefully we get to a certain point, let's just pull them out of there. I do have a wrench that socket, but again, working with a small area. Once you can get it past, you just pull her on out. We got that bolt right there. And now it should pretty easily come off here. All right, and as you can see, that is our old piece. Pretty rough, pretty rough. So that moves with no force at all. So in a way, I know this next one's gonna be hard to get back on, but okay, so you can compress this. Again, with our positioning, this is gonna be pretty tough. So what we're gonna do is get this bolt ready to go. So then if I can compress this back in and might be able to. So we're gonna try using, I have tiny pry bars here, so we'll see if we can make something work with this. It is definitely challenging with this small space. Yeah. All right. Okay, so the pry bar did help. You definitely still have to muscle a little bit. You can't. Be careful just to not mess up that piece, but we did get it. All right, so once we can get that back in there, in that slot, hopefully we can ease her back in. Yep, sounds like feels like she's threading just fine. You were nice and tight. All right, now we gotta get that back bolt back in here. Try to stay out of the picture. Then we have a washer and a nut. So make sure that washer goes on first. All right, then we'll follow up with the nut. And then we will be back to the 18mm socket. Again, now that my shoulder's nice and tired, all right, there she blows. New shock installed.
All right, guys, wrapping this one up here. If you are looking for what I would call a somewhat affordable upgrade over the stock quad shock setup for your SN or New Edge Mustang at home, be sure to check out the Bilstein B6, available right here at AmericanMuscle.com.